Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode on Lartman Farm. In today's episode, we are going to delve deeper into the life cycle of your catfish. We are going to consider from egg stage to adult fish. Let's go. So welcome back. The very first thing that we can discuss when it comes to your fish will be the egg stage. The egg stage is the very first of all the stages in the life of your fish. For us to be able to get the eggs, we would need some brood stocks. And so we need a male catfish and a female catfish. There are natural ways of hatching the fish, and then there are artificial ways of hatching the fish. With artificial ways, with a female fish, you inject it with an overprim with a medicine, and then for 12 hours it will detach the eggs from the belly of the fish, and then when you come back you can just press the sides of the fish and then you'll be able to get the eggs out of it. With a male catfish, you would have to kill it and then degut it, and then you'll be able to find the semen, and then you just make sure you sterilize everything, and then you mix the semen with the egg, and then you spread it at the top surface of your pond. But then before you spread it, you make sure there's a net in there to be able to capture the eggs. And so after you've done that, the eggs will be at the top part of your pond. Then the fish that will hatch would now swim downward, whereas the ones that will not hatch will be on the net. And so when you come, you just take the ones that didn't hatch in the net and then you take them out of the pond. And so when you have these eggs in your pond, you do not touch them. What you do is you make sure the water parameters are carefully controlled to encourage successful hatching of your fish. And so after 3 days, you should see the eggs hatching. And so you start seeing some small black spots like you can see in this particular video. And then they'll be swimming in the pond. And then the ones that didn't hatch, some of them will still be able to go to the bottom. And so you have to siphon them out of your pond, because when you leave those eggs that didn't hatch in the pond, they are going to contaminate the water, and then you can lose all of your fish. So when the eggs hatch, there is no need for you to feed them for the first 3 days, because there will be some yolk sac for the embryo, which the fish would be able to eat. So for the very first 3 days, you don't feed them. Then they become the fry. Now the fries, what you have to feed them will be the artemia. The artemia, when you put them into the water, they are very tiny. They are like a powder form, some way, somehow like shrimps. And then they are like baby, very tiny shrimps. And then the fries will just go and then feast on them. But whilst you are doing this, you need to make sure your water quality is top notch, because you can have over 100,000 eggs, and then by the time they would hatch, you can have, let's say 60% of them hatching. Out of the 60% of them hatching, if you don't maintain good water quality parameters, you can lose all of them at fry stage. And so it's very important that you maintain good water quality parameters. And so every single time you make sure there's fresh water coming into the pond, and then there's wastewater going out of the pond. Now, this process that we do in our farms, they are very critical to our production, and so we pay very much attention to whatever thing that you do over there. Then right from the hatching stage, normally it takes about 4 weeks to almost 6 weeks for them to become fingerlings. Now when they become fingerlings, you still need to make sure you change the water quite well, because when you don't change the water quite well, the fingerlings, the smaller the fish, the higher the mortality. And so it is very important that the farmer takes good care of the fingerlings. So at the fingerling stage, your fish will be weighing between 3 to 4 grams. So any fingerlings that you buy is between 3 to 4 grams. Then after feeding them and changing your water quality, they get to the post-fingerling stage. And the post-fingerling stage is from 4 grams to 6 grams. From 4 grams to 6 grams. Then from 4 grams to 6 grams, the next stage will be the juvenile stage. And the juvenile stage, we are looking at from 6 grams to 10 grams. So if you are buying a juvenile, it should weigh from 6 grams to 10 grams. And then we have the post-juveniles. The post-juveniles are from 10 grams and above. Now, these different times in terms of fingerlings and then juveniles, there is a mortality ratio attached to it. Normally, if you go and stock your pond with fingerlings, you have about 25% mortality at the end of the 6 months. But you lose a lot of your fingerlings. Most of the time, it could be 10% of that in the first 3 weeks of stocking them. If you go and take fingerlings from a hatchery and then you bring them into your pond, for the very first 3 weeks, you can and you should expect some mortalities. The only way you can handle these mortalities will be where you make sure that your water quality parameters and other things the farmer tells you to do, you follow them carefully. Whereas with the juveniles or post-juveniles, you are sure that by the end of the production process, that is in 6 months, you shouldn't lose more than 10% in your farm. And so the difference over there is all because the juveniles or the post-juveniles can withstand a lot of the changes and other things that happens in your pond, whereas the fingerlings, just like it happened with the fries and then with the eggs, changes in water parameters will cause mass mortalities. Whereas there are some farmers who stock their farms with fingerlings, and then after 2 weeks or 3 weeks, they will call me and tell me that they have lost all their fish. This is because, aside knowing how to care for the fingerlings, you should have gone in for maybe juveniles rather than fingerlings. So for first-time farmers, we normally encourage you to go in for the juveniles, and then subsequently you can now go in for the fingerlings. Sometimes, because of the difference in price, you realize many farmers rushing in for the fingerlings instead of going in for the juveniles. Another thing we like to look at with respect to fingerlings and juveniles will be with their feeding. Feeding with juveniles is a little bit easier as compared to fingerlings, because with fingerlings you may have to feed them about 2 to 3 times a day, and you need to be consistent with your timing. Whereas with juveniles, you can do just 2 times in a day and then just be consistent with your farming. Then the last stage will be the adult fish. After you've taken good care of your fingerlings or your juvenile, when they reach any size above 500 grams, we will consider them as adult fish. Because in the markets, people do buy a lot of the 500 grams of fish. Some buy 700 grams, some buy 1 kg and above as well. And so any fish above this is an adult fish for us. And these adult fish, when we harvest them, they are just going straight into the market. So as you can see over here, this is one of my fish ponds. I'm just harvesting a fish from my backyard. And look at how big this fish looks. And then now we decided to just prepare it and enjoy it, because we need to enjoy the works of our labor. So when it comes to the adult fish, most of the time in some farms, their feeding is done actually once in a day, because sometimes you do not want them to even put on extra weight because of maybe you are looking at a particular timing. And so when you start with, let's say, feeding your fries about 4 times in a day, to now feeding them to 3 times to 2 times, at the adult fish stage, you can feed them once a day. But the feeding is done in a way that even if it's once in a day, make sure that you feed them to satiety. And so you change your water, allow the fish to acclimatize to all the changes, then now you feed them. So feeding of your fish shouldn't be done in a rush. When you want to do once in a day, make sure sometimes spend between 10 to 15 minutes feeding your fish. And then you would have them reaching the size that is okay for the markets to take them. And there you have it, the journey of your fish from egg to adult fish. As I said, when you harvest them, you can either grill this fish, you can process them by smoking, you can salt them, you can get the fillet, and then you can also get some fish powder also with the same fish in your backyard. And so for you guys, it is important that you know and understand this journey. Understanding these processes is going to help you to maintain good health and sustainability in your catfish farming processes. For those of you guys who are watching us on today's episode, we have our Lartman Farms training coming up on the 31st of March to the 1st of April. If you would like to join the training, our contact is being displayed on the screen. You can just reach out to us and then we can get you to participate. This our training is going to provide you with information on how to care for your fish till they are ready for the market. It includes from stocking to filtration to feeding to all other parameters that is essential to the growth of your fish. And the second part of the training is going to talk about the processing and then all the requirements that you need to have. And the third part of the training is going to discuss the economics of every single farm. So if you want to set up a fish farm, what are the economics that you need to work with to be able to be profitable in your business? Then we also have the Black Soldier Fly Larvae production team. They would also show you how you can culture some of these organisms to be able to use them as supplementary feed for your fish. Thank you very much for watching today's episode. If you have any questions at all, you can just type them in the comment section. We'll take a look at it and then we'll bring up other episodes to address them. So keep on watching all the videos, and we have another video over here that you can take a look at. Bye.